Welcome to the second Lunch and Learn session in the series on operational excellence. This session's topic is organizational culture. Understanding your culture and motivating employees to achieve breakthrough results. This session is sponsored by Jamestown Community College Workforce Readiness. The session is facilitated by Max Krug from Future State Engineering. We hope that you enjoy the session.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. So today, on the theme of operational excellence, we're going to talk about culture. So understanding your culture and motivating employees to achieve breakthrough results. So if you were in the session last week, we were talking about getting breakthrough results, not just incremental small achievements, right? We're looking for big improvements in results, so organizational results. So the most important part of that is having the right culture to achieve that. Okay, so I wanted to do this session on culture today because culture is such an important element of the operational excellence journey. Okay, so last week, just a quick review, we talked about the necessary conditions to creating operational excellence, which was satisfying all the needs of the customer, meeting the needs of the organization, which includes all the stakeholders, establishing that mindset to achieve sustainable improvement. And today's focus is really on establishing a positive change in the organizational culture. So organizations that I go into, every organization I go into, the first thing I hear is, oh, you don't understand, we're different. So if I had $1 for every time I heard that, I'd be a millionaire right now. But so what is different in every organization is the culture. So business is fairly generic if we look at it in terms of a process, like every business has processes, but what's unique about companies is their culture. So yes, you're different, and how things get done in the organization is what differentiates you from other organizations. So that culture is unique for each organization. So it's important that if you start down the operational excellence journey, that we understand the culture and we do the correct things in the right sequence to create that positive change in the culture. Okay, so the implementation plan for a company going through this journey is going to be different depending on your culture. So what a high-performing culture is not, so I'm a big Dilbert fan, so I got a couple of Dilbert cartoons here. So the first one is, the boss says, we're hiring a director of change management to help employees embrace strategic changes. And Dilbert says, or we could come up with some strategies that make sense, then our employees will embrace change. And the boss says, that sounds harder. And then the second one, we need to foster a culture of innovation. Does anyone have an idea what we could do with how we can do that? Dilbert says, you could give us less work and you could stop criticizing every idea that we have. And the guy says, does anyone have a suggestion that isn't ridiculous? So the point here is, right, we don't want to shoot people down, right? We don't want to shoot down their ideas. If we continue to shoot down their ideas, they're just going to stop giving ideas, okay? So what is organizational culture? So let's define it. So this definition, it's the values and behaviors that create the unique social and psychological environment within the organization. Okay, so we're focused on the values, but more importantly, focused on the behaviors. So if we're not getting the results that we're looking for in the organization, we want to go back and look at the behaviors. Are people behaving in alignment with what we're trying to achieve? If there's a misalignment, we're not going to achieve those results, right? So we're really focused on the behaviors. So it represents a collective values, beliefs, and principles of members of the organization, right? So the people in the organization make up that culture. So some of the influences include how people interact within the organization, how decisions are made, how people treat each other in the organization, how knowledge is created, how change is viewed by employees, and how employees share, or more importantly, don't share knowledge. Okay, so from an organizational operational excellence perspective, we're focusing on these influences. So we need to improve how people interact within the organization. We need to improve how decisions are made. We need to improve how people treat each other. So we're looking for improvement in all these influences. So I've been in a lot of organizations and I've collected what I call cultural issues. So these are symptoms that I see in organizations. So if your organization has any of these symptoms, then there's opportunity to improve the culture within the organization. So for example, improvements efforts are not sustained, right? So we do something and then 3 months later, we're back to old practices. Employees are frustrated with the lack of accountability. Employees feel that communication is poor. Employee morale is declining. Employees are frustrated with the improvement efforts. Managers feel pressure to micromanage. Resources are constantly under pressure to deal with new priorities. Employees don't feel appreciated for their efforts. Resources are spread too thin. There's a lack of buy-in to plan changes within the organization. Problems take too long to resolve, and there's no time to provide timely feedback to employees. So if you have any of these symptoms, right? So we call them symptoms because there's a deeper level cause that are creating these issues. So if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, or all these issues, then there's opportunities to improve the culture within the organization, right? And we want to focus on those influences that I talked about in the previous slide. So one of the ways we do this is we look at a change matrix. So with any change within the organization, of course, to achieve operational excellence, we need to make changes, right? So we can't continue to do the same things over and over and expect different results, right? That's the definition of insanity. So to get better, we need to make changes. But with any change, there's 4 boxes that proposed change could fit into. So we look on the left-hand side of the positive and negatives of change, and then across the top, either don't change or change. So the 4-box matrix is there's positives of not changing, there's negatives of not changing, there's positives of change, and there's negatives of change. So if you're not trained in how to facilitate change, so we've all experienced this where we go into a meeting, we have an idea, we say the idea, and we get 5 reasons why the thing won't work, right? Or people shoot down the idea, right? Then we just walk away frustrated from the meeting. So what I've learned is if you're not facilitated, if you're not trained on how to facilitate change, and you're in a meeting, you're going to have people in all 4 of these boxes. So some people are only going to see the negative. Some people are going to see the positive of your change, your proposed change. Some are going to say, why do we need to change? I don't see what's wrong. And then we have people say, well, that's not going to work because, and they'll have 5 issues why the change won't work, okay? So the point here is you need to understand that there's all these people in the meeting and they're going to have different perspectives on your proposed change. So to make this simple, I'm a visual guy, right? So we put pictures or images in each of these boxes. So the negative of not changing, we call the alligators, right? These are things that are biting us every day and all our frustrations of the issues that we're dealing with. So the previous slide that I talked about, the symptoms, those are the alligators, okay? Next is the positive of change, right? So there's some positive they're trying to create with this change is the pot of gold, right? So when we talk about what's your pot of gold, it's like, what are we trying to achieve? Third is the positives of not changing. So those are the mermaids. So we want to keep the positive things that we're doing well, right? Don't change the things that we're doing well. Focus on the things that we're not doing well. And then the crutches are the risks, right? The negatives of the change. Okay, so this change matrix, so what are the crutches? What are the things that could happen as a result of making the change? What's our pot of gold? What's our alligators? What's our mermaids? Okay, so if we take the the symptoms that I talked about and put them in the negative of not change, it would be employees are frustrated with the lack of accountability. Employees are frustrated with improvement efforts. Employees' morale is declining. Improvement efforts are not sustained. So those are the alligators. Okay, so of course, what does a high-performing organization look like? It's the opposite of these. So it would be employees are held accountable. Employees embrace the improvement efforts. Morale is increasing. Improvement efforts are sustained, right? So the transition is to make those negatives positive statements, right? So the solution, the pot of gold, is we need to address all these negatives. If we don't address all of them, it's not a comprehensive solution. So we want to be a high-performing organization. Yes, these negatives give us definition of what that means for our organization. And we want people to, okay, what does that mean for us? It means that we're going to eliminate those negative implications or negative symptoms. So an example of things that might come up as a negative of that, we're a high-performing organization. Oh, other employers will steal our employees. So that's a risk, right? So we're a high-performing organization. People are going to want to steal our employees. So how do we minimize that? So part of the solution is we need to minimize the ability of other organizations to steal our employees. Okay, so the people that are, we call them the yes, but. Yes, I agree that we need to do this, but you got to listen to those yes, buts. Those are all the risks that people see of the proposed change. They're extremely important in creating a high-performing organization. If you don't address these, then those negative implications will come back and bite you in the future. And of course, we don't want to change the things that we're doing well. So things that we do well might be we invest in ongoing training for our employees, right? Let's continue to do that. We have a comprehensive onboarding process, right? Let's continue to do that. Okay, so this change matrix is extremely important in understanding how you're going to transition the organization, right? Eliminate the negatives, minimize the crutches, continue to do the mermaids to achieve the pot of gold. So building the high-performing organization, we look at it as a four-step process. And again, the culture is so important in this process. So first step is, what do we change? So what is all our alligators, right? So what are the frustrations that employees have? So we need to, if we want to make a positive change in the culture, we got to eliminate employee frustrations. Second, what to change to. So, okay, we understand all the alligators. What's our pot of gold? Okay, so let's define that for the organization. What does that mean for our organization? Three, how do we cause the change? So there's two things here: eliminate the alligators and continue to do the things that we do well to sustain the change. So minimize the crutches and keep doing more of the mermaids. So let's do a quick review. So cultural review, one, so each organization is unique in the values and behaviors, right? So if you say we're different, yes, I agree, you're different, your culture is extremely different. So I've seen all different types of cultures. So depending on that culture, you need to define how we're going to lead change within the organization to achieve high performing. So I was in one organization and I would describe the relationship between leadership and the workforce as fire and gasoline. Okay, so it's extremely volatile work relationship. And so we started to come in, we started to do change. We started in one area that we thought we could have some positive changes. We brought the team of people in. We did a session where I let them express all their alligators, right? So we want to start with the frustrations and they listed probably 20 things that they were frustrated with. So then we said, okay, let's take those frustrations and define a problem statement. So we came up with a problem statement and then said, okay, that's sort of our what we need to fix. Then we said, okay, what's the direction of the solution? So what does good look like? So that's an important thing, right? So when you're looking at a situation, let's define our pot of gold. I mean, what does good look like for us? When we define that, now we've defined the direction of the solution. So I said, okay, we agree on the issues, we agree on the direction of the solution. I want you to go back and come up with ideas on how we can fix these issues, right, and solve this problem. So after they left the meeting, I said to the leadership, whatever they suggest, we're implementing. I don't care what idea they come up with, we're implementing the idea. Why? Because we need to get a success. So when we look at that organization, there was always, right, people shooting down people's other ideas. Let's get a positive success. So of course, when they come back with an idea, do you think they're going to let that idea fail? No way, right? So I don't care what they suggest, we're implementing. So right then, that immediately changed when we said, okay, here's your ideas, let's go implement them. It started changing the culture that day in the organization to a positive, more of a positive view. Okay, so again, understanding your organization and where we're at, you need to design the right path to move forward. So the values and behaviors, it's how people interact, make decisions, and treat each other, right? We're looking for improvement on those three things. Also, how employees view changes, right? So we know that people are gonna view those changes in 4 different views that we talked about in our change matrix. So the key is getting everybody on board and getting people to see, right, changing the mindset so we can see that the change is actually going to improve the performance of the company. And we're going to minimize the risks, and we're going to keep doing the things that we do well. So in establishing that high performing culture, we want that leadership commitment and alignment, right? So we talked about that last week. That's so critical, right? That leadership is committed and they're aligned, right? So what does that mean in terms of culture? They're putting their money where their mouth is, right? We're not giving lip service to the employees. So if we say we're going to do it, we show it through actions. Second, empower employees and achieve buy-in. So how we achieve buy-in is we address the alligators and we minimize the crutches. We establish the correct mindset. So again, we got to break out of that mindset of this is the way it's always been done, right? So I think we talked about Henry Ford last week, his quote, if you say you can or you say you can't, you're right. So you got to break that mindset of it isn't impossible, right? Anything's possible. Then focus, focus, focus. So what does that mean? Do what should be done to achieve the goal, the pot of gold. Don't do what shouldn't be done, right? So don't waste our effort if it's not achieving the goal of the organization, right? There's thousands of improvement or thousands of changes, I should say, in an organization that can be done, but not all changes are going to turn into positive performance improvement. Okay, so we have a saying, every improvement is a change, but not every change is an improvement. Okay, so that's the first mindset we need to break. Okay, we're not going to go out and just do a bunch of changes if it doesn't translate into positive culture improvement or positive organizational improvement. Then we should challenge that. Should we be doing those things? Okay, so again, thank you for attending today's session. We'll open it up for questions now. If you want more information, you can visit our websites. And that's the conclusion of today's session, so we can open it up for questions. Again, you can raise your hand or unmute yourself to ask a question.
Hey there, Max. I thought I'd jump in if that's all right.
Yep.
Ryan Parker here. First, I think you missed an opportunity to do something with the crocodile hunter and a crocodile. So just a suggestion for the future, but a little Steve Irwin reference would never hurt.
Yes.
I'm getting the impression that you're basically saying with that change matrix that change is non-binary when we're trying to perform it in a business sense.
Yes.
Okay. So how do you move people to seeing it as either good or bad?
So part of that comes through definition of what good looks like. So what's the drivers for the organization and what KPIs that we set up. So we're going to do a session on KPIs coming up. So having the right measurements important. If we have the wrong measurement and we're getting the wrong behavior, we need to change the measurement. And so in recent past, right? So the example I like to use there is Wells Fargo, right? So Wells Fargo, their goal was to drive the stock price up. So people were committing fraud to meet the goal, right? That's the power of measurement. So if we're not getting the right behaviors, one of the things we're going to start looking at, do we have the right measurements in place? Because the measurements are going to drive behaviors.
Excellent.
And a lot of times we see those measurements are causing the alligators.
Hey, thank you very much. Another great presentation.
Great, thanks.
Max, we did have a question come into the chat.
Okay.
Are there any great techniques for employee engagement?
Great technique for employee engagement. So we're going to talk about that in a session coming up, the Socratic method. So how to create buy-in through questioning. But to me, the greatest success I've had is getting the people involved in the process, right? The process owners involved in that improvement. If we don't get the process owners and people are just coming down and giving direction what they need to do, it's not going to sustain. So my technique is get the process experts and have somebody that can facilitate that change and leverage the knowledge of the process experts to create that buy-in. So I've had some great facilitation sessions with facilitating teams to a goal using that technique. Did that answer the question?
Yes, I think so.
Max, do you
Yes.
want to explain about design sprints and how it brings employee engagement and buy-in, or just?
Yeah, so we can talk about that briefly. So we've developed a process called design sprint. So design sprint is a short, basically 3-week engagement that's designed to achieve extreme buy-in, alignment, and establishment of the goals, the KPIs, and what we call critical success factors. So it starts with interviewing employees and understanding the alligators. So one thing nice about using an external resource, probably the biggest comment I get when I'm interviewing is that people say, I can say things to you, I can't say to my boss, right? So if the boss is interviewing the employees, you're not going to get the alligators, right? Because people are afraid to voice their opinion. That's a cultural issue, right? So if people are afraid to voice their opinion to their boss, that's an issue. So a lot of times they're open up to us because we tell them that whatever you say is going to be held in confidence, and we're not going to say, oh, Joe said this in the meeting, right? We're not going to call people out. So that process is designed to gather the necessary information to really understand the alligators and understand the cause of the alligators, right? Then the employees come up with the solution, right? So it's actually the employees that develop the solution on how to achieve the pot of gold. It's really amazing to sort of watch. If everyone wants information on that, let us know. We can send you the presentation on the whole design sprint process.
Okay, here's another question from the chat. How do you get buy-in from leadership?
So how we do it is the design sprint I just mentioned. So if you're in the organization, that's a tough thing to do. So how do you coach up, right? So you can, again, the Socratic method, you can learn how to coach up to your boss. And again, it's a lot of training and practice. So how do you get your boss to see the opportunities or see where there's things that need to change? So if they don't see it, then you need to be trained in how to facilitate coaching, right? Coaching up, coaching down, right? So it's different techniques when you're coaching up than coaching down. So those are the three things I would say. Design sprint, learn how to coach up to the leadership. So another important technique here. So one thing I always like to do is I like to have an internal advocate. So whether you're inside the organization or you're outside the organization, always have an internal advocate on your leadership team. So the internal advocate is the one that believes in what you're saying and is going to help persuade the leadership team. Okay, so if you want to improve, you want to get buy-in from leadership, identify who that internal advocate's going to be for you and get buy-in from that person. Okay, so that's another technique that I've learned.
Okay, can you talk about organization culture example in regard to the times we are in with the pandemic crisis that you have heard?
Yeah, so I've heard all sorts of stories recently. And again, it's behaviors, right? So there's outside influences now changing behaviors in organizations. So we need to understand how those influences are affecting the behaviors. So I've heard companies saying, oh, we're going to go to reduce workforce and we're going to, okay, instead of working 5 days, we're going to go on 3 days. Okay, the other 2 days you can get unemployment and you can get the extra money for the COVID-19. And so people are saying, geez, I can make more money not working than I can working. So why do I want to go to work, risk getting infected and make less money? Does that make sense? So part of these issues that companies are struggling with now is due to external influences. So how do we, I don't know, not saying they have a solution for that, but we need to figure out how we're going to deal with these external influences and don't let those affect our culture or behaviors within the organization. And again, we're looking for a win-win, right? So if we have these external influences, we want to win for the company, we want to win for the employee. So how do we create that win-win? This is a complex problem, right? So it's going to take a lot of effort to figure out how to solve that problem. But if people are willing to work, want help working through this issue, we can set up a small working group to discuss these things for your organization. Because I know it's affecting a lot of different people in a lot of different ways.
Is there something immediate that a company can do to get an immediate results or change?
In culture or in process? I assume in culture.
Yeah, it doesn't say. Oh, culture, yes.
Yeah, so listen to your employees. So the success I've had in immediate, listen to what the employees are saying, right? Don't force your ideas on them. Listen to them, be good problem solvers. So I see so many companies that are terrible at problem solving. So what the employees are saying to you are the symptoms. So you need to take those symptoms and determine the cause, right? If you don't do that, right, you're not going to solve the problem. You're just going to put in more process steps, mostly non-value added things to try to adjust the symptoms, and that's not the cause, right? So you need to listen to what the employees are saying, identify an area where there's a lot of problems going on or a lot of morale issues, get those people together, listen to what they're saying, do the analysis on what's the cause of what they're complaining about. Then go back and facilitate the team, say, hey, this is what I heard, this is what, and they can help you with the root cause analysis and let them solve the problem. Just like the example I was telling you about, right? So whatever they suggest, we're implementing. I don't care what it is. It was immediate change. And when I walked through the plant, like weeks after we did that, I had people come up to me and say, hey, when does our team get to come up and talk to you? Right? So there was immediate impact within that organization.
Okay, given the COVID-19 environment now is a good time to start collecting lessons learned from remote work, et cetera, and share.
Yes.
What positives can we pull forward into how the company works?
Yeah, so these are, right, there's many positive things that are coming out of working remotely. Those are the new mermaids. So let's figure out how to make that the norm, right? So maybe we'll never go back to the way we used to work. We're going to change the way we work. So those are the new mermaids. But also don't forget about the crutches, right? So if you have a new positive way of doing something, then make sure you identify the risks that could also come as a part of doing that new way of working. So yes, let's make that the new standard, but let's also make sure we do our homework and we eliminate those risks.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions? It looks like we're good.
Thank you, Kathleen and Max, very much for facilitating today's session. On behalf of Future State Engineering and JCC's Workforce Readiness Department, we wanted to let you know if you like today's session and want to learn more, we're offering a full 8-hour online open operational excellence class, which goes more in depth into how to create a high-performing organization. Dates for this class are Tuesdays and Thursdays, May 12th, May 14th, May 19th, and May 21st, and times for the class are from 9 to 11 a.m. So if you'd like more information on that or like to register for that, please contact JCC's Workforce Readiness Department. Kathleen, maybe you can share some information on how they can do that.
Yes, it's available on our website, or you can use the email contact information form to request more information, or you can also directly email me. I'm the one that's been sending the links to the meetings and that, so it's fine to just reach out to me as well. All right, well, thank you everyone for joining us. Our last session in this little mini series is next Wednesday, and we will be sending some more information because we will continue these. We have a total of 9 sessions altogether that you can join us for, and those are all the free Lunch and Learn 20-minute sessions. So we'll be getting information out about the rest of them, and in the meantime, have a great week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and hopefully we'll all be back in the offices relatively soon. But take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes, thanks. See you next week.